Welcome to the largest growing vodcast in America from the Park Bench from the Greater Milwaukee Association of Realtors. I am your host, Scott Bush, and today's show we're going to discuss the upcoming Packers and Bears season. I am joined by my panel of experts. On my far right is Peter S. Stefaniak with the Stefaniak Group, and I also have John Gescheidmeyer, who I call John G. from Remax Service First. On my left is Chris Carrillo, who will be representing the Bears today, and Chris is the CEO of the MLS. And our expert today is Mike Hart. Mike Hart is a retired sports writer with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel and writer of Packer Plus. Now you might be wondering, how can we afford such talent? Well, Mike is my brother-in-law. That's how we do it.
Well, he owes me $5.
I owe $5. Right, so no dues dollars went into compensating Mr. Hart for his services today. So, why don't we begin and talk about what are the keys of success, or the keys to success rather, for the Packers this season, and do you have any areas of concern? Why don't we start with Peter?
I would say this, the keys to the Packers, we got to keep in mind, their record was only 9-8 last year. The Packers had this great finish with 6-2 at the end. And we have this love affair with the Packers. And we have this assumption that everything's going to be wonderful and great this year. Our running back situation is not good, right? Aaron Jones is gone. Dillon is out for the year. Josh Jacobs, who we got from the Raiders, didn't have the best year. But keep in mind, the Raiders didn't have a very good year overall. So there's high expectations there, but there's still a void. Our number 2 running back for the Packers this year is a Division II guy. So to me, that's a concern. The other thing, optimistically, that offensive line gave Jordan Love a lot of time to throw the ball those last 8 games where we went 6-2, and then the 2 playoff games where we played pretty well. Pretty darn well, quite honest. So that to me is, shall we say, my concern, or the things I would look at. Will that offensive line be as effective as it was down the stretch last year? What's going to happen out of the running back position? John, your thoughts?
Well, I think I disagree a little bit with the running back position, but you're right. There's definitely a void there with a number 2, for sure. I think Josh Jacobs is going to have a great year. My concern is, and it's always been this way for the last several years, is defense and strength and conditioning. The strength and conditioning, to me, has always been kind of one of those nagging problems in the background, because it just seems like we have players that, you know, would just have an injury out of nowhere, and it makes you kind of wonder what is happening behind the scenes. I think the offensive line is going to be outstanding. They've shored up the secondary. You have a great wideout, a wideout situation. There's probably one of the, I think, one of the best talented group of receivers in the league.
A lot of guys there, yeah.
There are, and we're talking number 4 and 5 too.
Right.
With some of the depth that they have. McKinney is going to bring a lot of credibility to that defense as well. I'm just concerned about injuries, and I think that's just when you get into. I mean, I know the bye week was pretty strategically placed, I think, in the schedule. I like where that is. But I think for me, anyway, it's just going to come down to health.
All right, thank you, John. Okay, we want to talk Bears, and we want to talk about, I got some intro bumper music for Chris Carrillo here to talk about the Bears. This
Because
is
we had nothing to do with this.
pretty high tech.
Excellent jam.
All right, you know where that goes. It goes to, the Bears still suck, the Bears still suck. Okay. Chris, that was your intro, sir.
No respect for him.
I will start off by saying bear down. That's my only response. And for an area such as innovative as Wisconsin truly is, and I know that having lived and worked here now for many years, I'm surprised you can't come up with something a little bit more hard hitting than the Bears still suck, right? I mean, I expect more from that. So that's my full disclosure. I'm an Illinois born and bred and raised native, and being a Bears fan is in my DNA. Just very much as I'm sure as being a Packers fan is in yours. To be a Bears fan, especially north of the border in Wisconsin, you have to have faith and you have to have true love for your team. I'm humbled every year, especially from the track record of the Bears, what's been going on. I'm sure you've all been watching the Hard Knocks series. It's meant to draw some emotion and some fans back into the mix for the Chicago Bears because they have this kid that they drafted called Caleb Williams. And I think you all would agree with me that the Chicago Bears, what they have been doing consistently for probably 20 years, is that's where good quarterbacks go to die. GMs and coaches tend to squander their opportunities, and they become irrelevant and they get passed around. And I feel really bad for the young man out in Pittsburgh, Justin Fields, who I'm a big fan of today. I'm a fan still of Mitch Trubisky. And the Bears system just never really clicked with him. So now here we are again with Caleb Williams. The thing that's different this year, and I think you've seen the Hard Knocks, which is fun. You get drawn in for those kids that want to make a roster. They do everything they can. They get that sit down with the coach. You're not going to make the roster. You can't make the practice roster. Well, there's Caleb Williams. He's sitting there at number 1. He's fine. But what's different is that we have 3 receivers that arguably are probably the best trio ever going into any NFC North division ever. I think going into any season. You could argue that they may be the best 3 receivers in the entire NFL. Add to that we have a couple of other big targets. We have some running backs that can actually do some pro form, run out of the backfield, can catch and run and make some exciting things happen. We have a kid by the name of Cole Kmet. I love Cole Kmet because he's an identical twin to my oldest son, Tony. So I love Cole Kmet just because he looks like my son. But he's a great target too. So I think it could be interesting. Our defense coming back has been solid. Started off terribly. I remember because we got ran over and passed over by the Packers opening game of last season. It was demoralizing going in saying, we're going to do this, and then same old, the Bears still suck, right?
Yeah.
So the Bears then turned around mid-season, and we have an all-star coming back at one corner. We have a couple of strong linebackers. We have a kid by the name of Sam Bourne, who's just awesome that I'm a fan of. Our line does decent. The DNs do a pretty decent job containing, so this could be an odd year. We could have 3 wins or we could have 12. It's just one of those odd years. When you come in with so much youth, you don't know. So what's the strength? Youth.
Well,
Especially if they're good.
That gets us to prediction time.
I would say this about the Bears. As a Packer fan, you got to show a little bit of love of their history. I mean, you've had some phenomenal
Yes,
players over the years.
absolutely.
When I was a kid, watching Gail
Sayers.
Butkus and Ditka and Walter Payton, a phenomenal ball
Yeah.
player, phenomenal. And the list goes on and on.
Alan Page.
But unfortunately, the Bears' recent history, last year was sort of the same song. They ended up 7-10. Eberflus has been 10-24 the last 2 years. The only reason he's still the coach is because you won 5 of the last 8 games last year. So there's that hope with the Bears in Bear Nation. Okay, I get it. You're right. You've got some really good receivers. If that offensive line does their job, there's potential for the Bears. But I got to be honest with you. The number 1 draft pick, Caleb Williams. How did he do last year at USC? Not so good. Didn't finish in the top 10, all right, in the voting for the Heisman Trophy. His sophomore year, he was an absolute stud. His freshman year, he was at Oklahoma and never played. So the Bears used the number 1 pick on a guy who's had 1 good year, and we all think he's the next savior.
I think they're relying on those receivers.
I tell you this, as a Packer fan, I'm looking at that draft, and I'm saying, Bears, please trade the number 1 draft pick to some number of teams would have overpaid. You had Justin Fields. He's fine, a good, decent quarterback. You could have built around him with some stud players. You had the number 9 pick. You picked a great receiver. You could have really bolstered that team. So, to get to my prediction for the Bears, okay, is if the Bears get off to a good start, I think they have a fairly easy schedule. They're going to be okay in Uberfluss, or I'm trying to pronounce that correctly.
Uberflus.
He might get fired by game 6 or 7 if they're not at least 500.
I'm gonna write that down.
And they should be,
That's pretty.
based on that schedule. They should be 3-4, 4-3 at least, okay?
Okay.
But again, you're banking on a rookie quarterback can even read an NFL defense yet.
Okay, so what's your prediction for the Bears season, Peter?
Man, you trying to be nice, I think the Bears might be 9-8.
Okay, what about the Packers?
Packers, I would say this. I think again we've got. Oh, I didn't even touch on the Bears' 4th-round draft pick. A punter? Are you kidding me?
He'll be busy.
Come on. A 4th-round draft pick on a
I was
punter.
waiting to hear from him, and that was the best quote yet.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Anyway, Packers predictions. I would say this. Again, I think we have this love affair with our Packers. I think the Lions are going to win this division. I do. I think the Packers are the wild card team.
I kind of do.
I think the Packers are 10-7,
That's what I have, Peter.
and I would say, we're the wild card team at 10-7.
Season ticket holder John G. What do you say?
Row 6, 131, right down the goal line.
Right by the beer guy.
I get to wave to a lot of people there that I know, but I agree. I think, and maybe before can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do, we talked about this before we went on the vodcast, is when the Bears lose, I like tuning in late Sunday night on the drive home from Lambeau. I like listening Monday morning to 670 The Score.
Yeah.
And it seems like
Yeah.
it seems like the same things over and over and over with what's going to change with ownership? What has to change?
Everything that Pete started off with, I agree. I am not a Caleb Williams guy. If you can get beat twice by a Utah defense and you expect to build your NFL team around that quarterback who on the roster is set at 6'3", that barely pushes 6'1" in reality, can you see over your offensive line? Athleticism will only take you so far. I'm a Bears fan. I'm not a McCaskey fan. I'm not a Ryan Poles fan. I'm absolutely not a fan of this coach, Eberflus, or his new redo. Did you watch the Hard Knocks series? He had a remake. He stopped shaving, and they're like, "Ooh, you look really tough." So they styled his hair different, and he now has this new trendy beard. If that's your sizzle you're going for in the NFL, that's a far, far stretch from certainly Coach Love or the great Coach Ditka. So I don't know. I'm a Bears fan,
Okay.
not an individual fan.
Packers.
I thought the Bears are going to end up 8-9.
8-9 for the 8-9.
But I agree with him. I think, unfortunately, I do think the Lions are
No one's
probably
talking
the
about
more
it. I don't know
seasoned
why.
team right now. The Packers are the youngest team, just by a hair,
Yeah.
in the NFL. I think it's going to take another year or two for them to really kind of gel. It might be a slow season. I'm going to predict 10-7 for the Packers as well.
Okay, and that's also my prediction. That's your prediction. Chris, and I really was looking for a Bears fan. I was having a hard time finding one. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. But what do you think the Packers are going to do record-wise, and what do you think the Bears are going to do?
First, I would trade a Caleb Williams for Jordan Love right now. I'm impressed. I've always been impressed with how the Packers can spot would-be mediocrity and you make it into excellence. You have a track record of this.
That's true.
I'm envious of this. And now I say this with the greatest amount of respect for the Packers. If you look to Canton, who has the most Hall of Famers? The Bears do. And who's number 2? Right behind them, the Packers. We have a lot to talk about. That being said, I
Great
think
franchise.
it's absolutely.
We can all agree on that.
Oh, yes. I think that this is the Lions' division to lose. I agree with that. The Packers, you could be the wild card. This is such a crazy year that it could come down to the last week, and the Bears and Packers are playing for that final wild card series, or that spot. You don't know. It has this odd year where there are less known variables going into it outside of what the Packers have. The Bears could be at the very bottom, or they could be competitive. I don't know.
My line of thinking is pretty much, we're kind of all on the same line of thought here. Let's go to our expert, Mike Hart, for a summary.
Did we get numbers from him though?
Oh yeah, hey, come on.
The Bears could literally be anywhere from a 5 to 10 win team, and I wouldn't be surprised in that range. I don't know. The Packers you're gonna get 10 games. Except here's the difference in mindset. I hear just 10 games. I would love to have a 10 win season as the Bears. Yeah, not just. I would love that. That'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Mike Hart, thank you.
Thank you for having me. The Packers, they're going to need a whole lot of love. A whole lot of love. If he gets hurt, the season's going to sink faster than the Titanic. They have nothing in reserve at quarterback. Thank God the management saw that Clifford and Pratt were as worthless as their stock. This guy they got from Tennessee, he played college football at Liberty, so I don't know how good he is. Love has to stay on the field, Scott.
Yeah.
And they have questions at kicker. That's a big problem. Carlson got kicked to the curb, and he went wide right. He could not be trusted, so he has a future as a politician.
Oh,
This Narveson fella, you're putting all your eggs in his basket, and he made a 59-yarder in the preseason, so he might pay off. But the Packers have one stretch in November where they have to play the 49ers on a Sunday and the Dolphins on a Thanksgiving. If they can split those two, they're on the road to 10-7.
Are you coming over for Thanksgiving this year?
Are you cooking?
Yeah, okay.
Are we gonna have blats?
Yeah.
Very good. The Bears, on the other hand, they could be the biggest sleeper since Rip Van Winkle. But they have issues at coaching. The Bears lost 3 games in the fourth quarter where they led by double digits going into the quarter. So Eberflus was as popular as rush hour traffic in Chicago. If they win those 3 games, they're a playoff team. It's that simple. So they'll go as far as Mitch Trubisky, Justin Fields. No, who's that guy they picked? Rudy Bukic. Caleb Williams takes them, and they could go 9-8.
Fair enough. Great. Okay, you heard our predictions. If you want to play along at home, I've got a prize for you at the end of the season. Who I'm sure we'll get some duplicate guesses. You can send me your predictions, Scott Bush at gmar.com. Send me your predictions, scottbush@gmar.com by September 13th. So you kind of get the first week free. Send me your prediction and also mail me $5 or better. And all the proceeds are going to go to the Realtors Youth Foundation. They're not going to go to the Scott Bush Retirement Fund. They're going to go to the Realtors Youth Foundation. $5 or better. And, send me a check, but just email me. I'll collect the money from you. No worries there. If you owe me money for gambling, we'll get the money. I'm not worried about that. I'm just saying, okay? So, the first prize is going to be this case of Blatz.
That's huge.
Nice.
Nice, right? Right. But if you are a member out there or an affiliate member and you think this prize is substandard, hey, give me a call and you can add to the prize vault for the winner at the end of the season. I will have the winner on, and if you want to sponsor a better prize, let me know. I'll have you on as well, and I'll mention it on my show, or on our show here. And we will award that and have that person on at the end of the season before the playoffs. So, I think that's all I have. Any last minute comments, anyone?
I'm good.
None of us mentioned the Vikings.
I was
I
just
loved
going to
it.
say,
No need to.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
we all have one thing in common.
Yeah, the Vikings suck.
They're gonna have a rough year.
Don't forget, if you want to play along at home, send me your Packer prediction, scott@gmar.com. I am Scott Bush from the Park Bench. Thank you very much. Thank you, panel. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.